Alright, let's begin. I wanted to cover this one today because it's focusing on like a kind of a rare lighting situation. So what we have here is a character in a silhouette, but the artist is kind of confusing two main light sources um, together. So what I'm going to do is treat the whole piece as one unit, the whole body, and then step by step break down the different light sources together, reacting to the primary light source and then the secondary light source and the tertiary light source. Primary light source is behind this character, behind her, causing her silhouette. The secondary light source is the light source that's revealing her breast and face and legs. And the tertiary light source is the hand glows. And they go down like that chronologically. The largest is the primary, the smallest is the tertiary light source. We have a couple of anatomy problems that we're going to be covering here. And that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to jump into Liquify real quick. And, excuse me. And I'm just going to fix up the perspective we have on her anatomy. So remember, the body is symmetrical. And if it's symmetrical, it's going to distort symmetrically. Not meaning both sides are going to be the same, but they're going to tilt on an angle. So knowing that the shoulders are on a horizontal line, when they tilt, they'll tilt on one line. And that's what I mean by symmetrical tilt. We will see the bottoms of the breasts, not the tops of the breasts. So some people always draw boobs when they draw them from the top down. And that's the only thing in their mind right now that remembers boobs. So whenever they draw the boobs, they always have to draw front view boobs. Because look at these are front view boobs. So we have to tilt the perspective again to see the bottom, just like we tilted the perspective of the shoulders. And the shirt that she's wearing tilts on the contour of her breasts. Just like this, going down the symmetry line. So do you see that? Does everybody see that? Why did I just do this? Can anyone explain? Sorry if I start coughing. I'm still a little bit sick. Boobs. Perspective. Our POVs from below. Excellent. Anything else? To fit the symmetry. So both breasts are the same size. Alright. So you sort of follow the contour of the breasts until you get sort of appropriate looking peak on the shirt and the way the shirt wraps around. And I'm thinking about the body as a cube, so this side of the cube, this is the side of the cube that's going to be getting some secondary light source on it. And this is the front of the cube, so you'll see in a moment how much that influences how we show this character, because again, we don't see anything without a light source. So we have to make sure we create a good cube that will react with a good light source. Remember, you won't have anywhere to place the light if you don't have a cube to accept all of the light on its angles and its contours. Right, so we need a shoulder for this character. On the other side, she's got a tilt happening with her head, and so her neck seems to be a bit long. I'm going to bring her neck down and tuck her hair out because her skeletal structure will push that out. And then I'm going to shrink her head as a whole. There we go. And I'm just thinking about the perspective. I'm not seeing anything. I'm seeing a building. I'm not seeing a character. I'm seeing a building right now. And because I'm thinking of the building, I'm thinking of the cube. If you start thinking of the object, the subject that you're drawing, whatever it is, as a building, as a solid structure, a mechanical structure that has angles and sides and edges, you'll be able to create a more realistic looking character because everything has that underlying cube. So this is a very cartoony-like waist. It's not a realistic-like waist. You want something in the middle. You don't want the extreme of either. So you want to give it a bit of curvature, but you also want it to be a thin waist. So it's reminiscent of that Barbie doll cartoon. The rib cage in this case will sort of bulge outward, just like this. And I'm going to have to touch on I mean, you can keep the hands long. This is what I mean by some rules that you can get away with. You can get away with the hands being this long. The arms, I mean, and the legs being this long because it works. It kind of feels elongated appropriately because it's a proportionate elongation. So you can get away with that. I think yeah. Alright, so before, after, before, after. Does everyone see this? Before, after. What did I do essentially? Can anyone tell me? Oh crap, I forgot to welcome everyone. I'm so sorry, I was in a rush. Welcome Ulo, Trigger, Tony, Tamil, Simon, Shaggy, Raka, Pineapple, Oris, Mr. Crepsley, hi. Malpakalov, Kuro, Julia Malak, Jamie, Freitos, Emotional Estate, Diana, and Asman, and Ado. That's 20 people signed in and 9 not signed in. Welcome to those who haven't signed in as well. Fix the perspective from how we're viewing it. Perspective, made the boobs follow the body direction. Yes. You rotated things into place. This sort of looks like proportion. Absolutely, all of that stuff. So now what's next? Now that I have an appropriate cube to work with, I have to frame the cube. I have to frame the light around the cube. So what I have to do, should I lasso or should I soft brush? I want a soft brush. Okay. I'm going to get one solid dark color and I'm going to brush it over everything here. Probably on 50%. I want everything in this silhouette to be dark because what's happened is the primary light source is behind her. So she is in darkness. She is in her shot. We are seeing the angle of the camera is tilted to be behind her. I mean, in front of her, where the shadow is away from the opposite side of where the light is, basically. We're on the exact shadow the light is causing on her. That's called a silhouette. So what I'm doing is I'm finding one solid value to place her in. I'm going to deal with this tertiary light source a little later. So this means that the primary core shadow is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing the primary core shadow that responds to the light source immediately. I need to increase this. God, you guys send me the smallest res. It's ridiculous. Okay, so now I'm just going to erase at the edges to make sure everything is appropriate. So this is the core shadow. This is what you have to do for anything, is you find its core shadow responding to the primary light source, and after that, you start to soup it up. You start to bring in some secondary light sources. You start to, expand the range of the grayscale, so you have medium light and dark medium, and you sort of bring in more variety. But essentially, you can't create a spectrum of variety if you don't have a solid reference point, and your core shadow is your solid reference point. So right now she is in the shadow. I'm also going to dim these highlights that she has in her hands because they're extremely distracting. I'm going to dim them down a little bit. Just like that. So this is the primary light sources behind her. She's in one solid shadow. If you have this clean shadow, you can do a lot at this point. So now let's sort of separate her from the background because she is the object that is experiencing the light, the shadow on her. She is in her silhouette. So we have to separate her from the background. The background at this point is too dark. It's almost as dark as she is. If there was a light enough to cast this much of a silhouette on her, then it wouldn't allow the room to be as dark as it is in here. So I'm going to try to create that pattern. This side here is too dark. There's no reason why this side and this side should be different kinds, different levels of dark, because you're talking about the same room, unless there was like a cloud shadow or a cast shadow, but you know, it's very little you can use that excuse and get away with it, that there was something outside of the screen causing this unusual shadow. So just try to keep things consistent. If you want it a little bit darker for framing or for compositional framing, go ahead, but make sure that it's not completely dark. So you see now she's starting to sort of separate from the background, which is really important. What I'm going to try to do is lighten up the background behind her. Whoa, I just wanted 5. Just trying to separate the background. I guess this is good. Alright. So I've made her dark, and now I have to make the atmosphere lit up as if the light is affecting the atmosphere around her. I do that by placing in, any light range. So soft light could also help. A soft light layer, just like this. And now she's separated. And again, if you want the framing back, all you have to do is just bring in any pattern brush that'll create the framing. So I want the lower areas to be framed, and the outer areas as if there was a spotlight that she's under. Just like this. So now the light is a little bit more stabilized. Let's take a look at the before just from this stage, just from this much editing. Before, really confused. The tertiary light sources are acting like they're the primary light sources. This is because they've taken that much of a value jump upward. And then after, well, we have a much better balance, and now we can bring in some of those contours that happen from the secondary light source. So now you can start rendering and choosing the high points of the flesh, choosing the high points of the face. And then finally, after you've determined how bright you want to go with your primary and secondary light sources, and the primary should always be the brightest, then you can bring in your tertiary light source. Never bring it in too early if you haven't created a balanced and stable spectrum. So what did I just say? Can anybody repeat that to me? Just going to give her some silhouettes. Actually, we're looking up at her face. My bad. Can anybody repeat it? Bring your light sources into the painting in order. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Why? Why is that necessary? What was the point of what I just said before? You want to create a balanced what? Because you won't confuse them. Have a foundation. You also want swag, yeah, absolutely. You want to create a balanced spectrum. You want to have what's darkest available to you and what's lightest available to you, so you have a reference system. If you draw a tertiary light source that's too light, you're like, holy crap, this is almost as light as my primary light source. I gotta fix this. That's sort of what's important here. So now I'm going to bring in the secondary light source, and I'm just going to choose any value here. And I'm going to choose only the high points of her skin. So the high point, like, that final little rise in the altitude of the contours of her thighs. And I still have to balance this later. I can't let the thighs be brighter than I have to choose where the secondary light source is coming from. Where is the hot spot on that secondary light source? So I want the hot spot to be near her face or near her legs. I mean, it can be anywhere. Her face can be completely hidden. Just choose a really dramatic spot that'll help bring this character to life. So does everybody see what I'm doing? What am I doing right now? This leg is really off. I get really confused. Bringing the character to life, secondary light source highlights. What am I doing though to the leg with the secondary light source? What am I doing exactly? Shaping it. Yeah, how? How do I shape it? Watch what I'm doing. What is it that I'm doing exactly? Giving it form, building the cube, indicating high spots on the cube toward the light. Absolutely. Tom Mulvera gets a sticker. The high points, that's the only place the light can reach in such a dim environment. The secondary light source is trying to illuminate this character out of her silhouette, out of that main shadow. And so what we need to do is help it by determining the high point. Where's the high point? Show it where the high point is and the light will fall on top. So the high point of her shoulders gets the only light that's brightest in that area. The highest point of the cylinder of her arms. The highest point on her chest. So there's a space in between the breast area that will get the light. Don't outline the breasts if you want to shape breasts. Do the opposite. Paint around them. This is how you render anything. You're just finding the high points of the collars. And I'm going to throw her face in some darkness. I want it to be a little bit darker and a little bit more ominous. And then I'm going to bring in the light on the high points of the face. And what are they? Does anyone know what they are? Okay, I'm going to ask a question. I don't know where to place these high points on this face. I want to show that this face is visible. Where do I place these high points? Can anyone list them to me? Nose is one of them. I want a full list. If you're not giving me a full list, you don't get a sticker. Nose, chin, cheeks. On the power symbol, yeah, the on switch. Nose, chin, cheeks, brow, chin 2, forehead, cheekbones, nose, lower lip, and chin. Upper lips as well. Above the lips. Upper lips are dark. The upper lip. It's called the upper lip if you go for a wax. Hello, I want to wax away my mustache. Alright, so I trust you guys. I'm going to do this. It better work, or else I'm just going to quit. Nose. Forehead, cheekbones, okay, I don't know, guys, I don't know if it's gonna work. Chin, okay, starting to look good. Brows, forehead, yeah, you guys did good. Not in between, not in between the eyes though. Don't put any light in between the eyes, please. Because that will fuck shit up. Alright, so we've got this really, really strong light behind her. And a strong light behind her is going to distort her edges, so I have to bring in some of that light. So this is before the secondary light source, by the way. Only placing light on the high points. Oops, my bad. Do you see this difference? I'll up the contrast in a second. Yeah? Yes, I was messing with you guys. Alright, so we're choosing the high points is basically just how you render. And you can find out where the high points are by looking at the anatomy or by looking at the cube, if you can see the cube. So now I want to distort her face. So her head is the darkest. And I want to bring her out again a little bit more from the background. And so before the dodge, after the dodge, she's sort of a bit more separated now. I'm going to do that a little bit more carefully. I'm going to up that burn. I'm going to place it only in those areas I want to distort. So the hot spots, again. If you find where the hot spots are in lighting, those are the areas of the highest contrast, highest detail, highest distortion. And you see the tertiary light source, it cannot be as bright as the secondary light source. Let's take a look at the before. Before, do you see how bright that was? That was too bright. And after, we have a lot more control here. It's very, very stable lighting. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the background light, that lightest spot, with my soft brush, and then on top of the face there is going to be distortion on top of the edges. So I'm going to actually paint over the edges and distort certain areas because she is in a silhouette. So some of these areas will bleed over, causing distortion on the edges. So in between the thighs, just around. We're also going to have these flyaway hairs are too cartoony. You might want to just give them a little bit more of an organic texture and organic distribution. We got a brush. And some of this light will do what to the hair? Can anyone tell me? Anyone tell me what will happen to this hair with the light behind it? Subsurface scattering, yes sir. But I have to bring in the hot spot first. So I'm going to place in some more heat behind so I can justify how dark her face is in here. A little bit more this way and a little bit more this way. And do you see the drama that's emerging? It's making a lot more sense than where it was before, where you had serious confusion between where the light was going. So now she's in a solid, valid light situation. Where we have a chronological, what's it called in the ecosystem? When the food chain. We have like that food chain happening in the lighting. So I'm going to do that thing to the hair in a second, but I want to show layering in the clothing as well. So some of the clothing will be transparent. I want to show that off. I'm going to throw one little thing over here. Show off her figure and then lighten it up one more time this way. So where it folds twice, where there are two layers, that's where it's darkest. Where there is one layer, that's where it's less dark. Do you see? So this is all because we are following that food chain of the light, the primary light and the secondary light. If you ever get confused and you found yourself in a painting where you've got all kinds of light sources tackling each other, if you just break it down and try to take it in that order instead of trying to take them all at once, you'll be able to sort of figure yourself out a lot better. This leg, I really need to fix it. So this one will also be facing forward. There's no reason why it has to tilt to the side. This could have been a compensation. This could have been misreading your reference. But I'm just going to give this leg a little bit more form, actually. And tuck this one behind. Just like that. And there seems to be a sort of better read for the legs. I'm just going to fix this knee area and the thigh gap. And then I'm going to fix up what I messed up with the secondary light source, that high spot thing that I was doing, the high points. So one high point over here and one high point over here. Just continue rendering that. Everything is referenced off the light sources. If I get lost, just think about, if I make one part of the leg too light and I'm like, that looks right, but I don't really know what to do, just think about which part is it more subject to, which light source is it more subject to, which one is affecting it the most. There's a hot spot right behind this part of the dress, so that part of the dress is going to be the lightest, right over here. And I increase that distortion in between the thighs. Some more over here. And then slowly building up into the lightest portion. You see, I'm not bringing in the lightest level I can go right away. I'm taking my time. And that's really important that you guys do that as well. You don't want to go full white right away. And you never want to go full, no man's land white either. So think about the clothing. So that actually this side of her arm will be lit up because that side is facing the lights, just like that. Because that's the cube. See where I stopped here, where I stopped blending this line that I just made? That's the cube telling me what to do. That's the cube speaking. A little bit of secondary light source over here. The arm also could use some help. The sort of the hand, but I guess I distorted that on my own. Alright, so what I said earlier about the edge of her torso, so let me show you exactly what I mean. If you think about the cube of her torso, the cube of her torso looks like this. Does everyone see this? Does everyone sort of know why I drew this cube? Is anyone confused about this essential cube? This is the cube of her torso. So the light has only up till this point to travel, and then it has to stop because there's an edge. Light can't wrap around. It can't bend on its own. It always travels in straight lines. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I see the cube in front of me, so that's where I'm going to stop. Right along. And I'm not just going to stop and not sort of work. There's a cast shadow happening from her arm to the edge. There could also be some fabric actually right behind this thigh. So we could place in some shadows here to show where the other part of the shirt is. the dress. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just got distracted by that. One sec. Just continuing this, stopping at that edge where I see that edge happening. Distorting it just a little bit, and that also is an area that is a hot spot. So I'm going to get my dodge, or you can get your brush, whatever you're used to. And that's where I'll create that distortion. I'm going to create one last little bit of distortion with a pure white. So not all the way up here, maybe up here will serve the purpose. And a new layer, low opacity so I have control. And I'm actually going to put it on color dodge. And this is creating even more distortion. So this is where the drama happens. And I'm shrinking my brush as I stipple. And this is as light as I go. Does everyone see this? That's too bright. Okay. Let me see if I can do this a bit better. Right in between her legs, right here. Right, so see how careful I am? I'm not doing this all crazy like. And I'm going to get my brush, shrink it, get that light color again, and I'm going to add in those hairs that have been illuminated. Just on the edges, there are some hairs that catch the light right behind her head. And it's okay if it's messy because we just have to fix it. We just have to bring down and blur and soften. And this is what I usually do. Either I go light and then just get darker, so I just get my eraser and then erase away what I don't like. And then slowly build it up so it has that soft look. It's going to be darker, and it's going to be more light. More is happening near the hot spot and less near the light spot. Less near the weak spot, sorry. Or the cool. And just keep rendering. So this is exactly what you wanted to do, original artist, OP. But you were sort of confusing all the light sources together. And there was a great deal of perspective that was sort of getting in the way as well. Might have gotten in the way. So when I place in those tertiary light sources, they can't be as bright as this thing that's causing this ruckus. Oops. So her proportions are a bit cartoony again. So you might want to look up like a reference so you can get that solid feeling. It's a very Superman-like mystical creature lady. I'm just adding more drama. And now I'm going to bring in those tertiary light sources, but you got to be smart about it. So she's holding them. They're in her hand. So if her thumb gets in the way, her thumb will be silhouetted, just like we did with her body. So it's the same rules, they never change. So I'm just going to ease up on that. It cannot be as bright as the primary light source. It has to be a little less intense. It also has a hot spot. Just just like that, and that'll work just fine. Same over here. You have to make sure that you erase away parts that the hand is in the way of. So the hand is in the way here, so it would have like moments of interruption in the rays of the glow coming out of her hand. So just like that, her hand would get in the way and her fingers would cast shadows into the air around it. Same as this, the thumb gets in the way and continues its own little, well, it does get a little bit lighter because of the atmosphere. Just like that, and it also has a hot spot of its own. They cannot be as bright, so you always have to zoom out, make sure it cannot be as bright as the primary light source. And if she's got any folds in her dress, this is sort of where you bring in that secondary light source, affecting the areas around it. Just like that. It's okay if it's messy, again, just clean it up. I use the lasso tool a lot when I paint. But remember, I placed this light here, but I can't interrupt the main shadow. It can't be this light. It can't stay this light. No way. It has to be brought all the way down, because the primary light source is still casting her in a really, really dominant silhouette. Just like this, everything is sort of coming together. And if you don't want the primary light source to be in the back, so if you want more secondary light source coming on top of her body, all you have to do is just, yeah, the left hand needs a hot spot. All right, sorry. Just like that, thank you. All you have to do is bring down the silhouette and make a stronger secondary light source, where the secondary light source becomes the primary light source. So mostly artists always do that. They don't want the character to be completely hidden in darkness. So you can bring down the primary light source from the back and make it a very, very delicate sort of silhouette happening, and then bring most of the lighting just around here, so you up the contrast on the face. You'll see eyelids, you'll see eyebrows, you'll see details like the corners of the mouth and all of that. So it's really your choice what you want to do. For me, I like the drama of it because she's kind of some mystical creature. So that's always cool. And of course, there's more work to do. It's not done. There's a lot of detail to consider. You need to bring everything down one more level. So I would, if I was you, I would just bring down I'd get a gray and just throw it over everything. And bring everything down to this kind of level here. And then just start painting over this. So I would make even a smaller radius for the hot spots. Duplicate. So I would make a smaller radius for the hot spot, so it would be a smaller brush. Just like this. Oops. So it's less bright, there's more detail, there's more build-up. And I would make only the darkest areas dark, so I would try to find the darkest points. I would just get like a textured brush to bring in some texture for the hair. So I'll get my really, really dark color, but I'll place it only in the areas that I know are the darkest. So right now everything is in mid-tone and I'm bringing in the highlights. So the shadow of the breasts off a secondary light source, or that clash. over here. It could be all kinds of stuff, but what it will do is it will bring in that extra dimension, that extra spectrum, if you want to take it this far. But if you want to keep it, you know, at the basic sort of level, you can keep everything really dark, but I feel like this is too much distribution of the black. I feel like we can bring in some detail where the black is only in certain areas, and that's how you sort of build up detail. You see, it's already coming together. Always be careful of using too much black or too much white. You'll just lose all the potential for form if you do that. Some of the tops of the breasts might get some light off the bleed, and that would be only the tops off the bleed of the secondary light source. God damn it. Some over here, the shadow beneath the breasts, and the light in between them. Collarbone, I fucked that up. I'm not zoomed in enough. Collarbones, the sides of the face. Might get some light. So you have all this chance for detail, and this is where the detailing happens. This is where your brush should stay small. Everything we did up to now has been large brush, large brush. But now it's sort of time to bring in those details, and we gotta zoom in. The dark spot on the arm, sort of the clash. On the hand. So think about the cube. The cube will guide you, telling you which parts aren't exposed that could afford that next level of darkness. And sometimes layering your brush really, really strategically can give you detail without you even trying. So just throwing some brush strokes on top of each other gives me all this detail. I don't have to push too far to get it. But if you do bring in any intriguing little details, make sure you always respect and go back and reassess the fact that, and reassess your values and remember the fact that you are in a silhouette. So the darkest spot on the neck, darkest spot on the face. This is all how you bring in some detail. Before it was flooded with black and white, which still looks good. It's very minimalist. But if you want that, again, that level of detail, you have to up everything one level and then work out of that. So does everyone see what I did today? Can anyone summarize what I did in a sentence or two? How do you not get that dreamy look though? Just don't use a soft brush. You can follow all of this without using the soft brush. The soft brush is a bitch. it'll fuck you up if you want to get that textured, painterly, hand painted look. Your soft brush will not do that for you. I use the soft brush because I have to. It works fast and it saves me time while I critique. But I don't use the soft brush that much when I'm painting. I usually use what I'm using right now, which is the hard edge brush. Okay? Sides of her armpit, we'll get some shadow. We're sort of bringing her out. And same thing with the face. You just have to get that dark and place it only where you need it. So that's where you sort of start bringing in the detail. Well, I'm kind of seeing her with this crazy makeup, maybe not. And you see, we're painting on top of an already established light situation. So it's okay now, we're safe. We have a clean plate. Some of the light is kind of coming from below her. And some light will be cast upward. So it's a mix between two light sources clashing on each other. So it's a mix between primary and secondary. And if you find a balance between both, you'll get to where you need to go. On switch. And then again, zoom in one more time. Shrink your brush. Of course we have to zoom out after this because we need to figure out what we're doing. If I'm fucking some stuff up, I won't know unless I zoom out. This is too small. The res is so low. I can't do much with this. So yeah, if you want to avoid that dreamy look, actually I don't like this. You have to use another brush. So I zoom out and then I fix what I did. There needs to be a larger shadow here. I need to throw some of her face in some more shadow because I don't want to escape the secondary light source. But I also don't want to escape the primary. The lips are too dark. Okay, I'm done my review. I'll go back in. And again, bring the darks only where I need them one last time. And that's all it really is. It's just the balance of that. And you keep doing that until you get a nice balance. Okie dokie. So it's either this or this, and then you just keep building this up. But this is pretty much the general correction of where you were before. So before, you see how light your tertiary light source was, even though she was in this. The light didn't seem like it was in front of her. It seemed like it was behind her because we've got these silhouettes happening against the smoke behind. So it feels more like a silhouette where you give it to me. And that's what I ran with. And then after, definitely more drama, more realism, more form. And then you have the option of detailing and bringing down the hot spots just a little bit. But of course this needs another like 3 hours of rendering because this is not enough to justify the fact that it is good to do this layer as well. I mean this layer. It is good to bring the blacks up a little bit and not let them work like a big black hole that'll take over the whole image and all you have is a silhouette and that's it. But technically this is where you want to start. Where you were before, again one last time. It's a confusion of 3 light sources that are on one object. The object wasn't even treated anatomically correct or physically correct as a 3D object. So you need to do some form studies, figure out your way and how to start seeing the form, some symmetry studies in the way you added the clothing on the body. You still draw symbolically. The leg seemed like it was completely dislocated. So you've sort of fixed that. I didn't really fix it very well. And again, this. So I'm going to delete this layer. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Looks like Sailor Mercury a little bit. Yeah, I asked earlier, do you work as a freelancer or in a studio? I work as a freelancer, but my papers have recently been processed in the US, so I can work in a studio soon, so I'm happy. Yeah! I've been waiting like 2 years for it to finally work out, so finally worked out a couple days ago. Got sent that letter that says, yeah, welcome to America. Do you begin with the gesture line if you want to do a figure? Yes, you do. You work absolutely. If there is a gesture to be considered, and I talked about this last class, I posted it on YouTube already. Um, if there is a gesture to be drawn, you have to take it on separately. You have to deal with the gesture part in a whole different day if you have to. But the gesture has to be dealt with gesture lines and shapes. You have to organize the motion lines and the symmetry lines and the balance of the weight balance, the center of gravity. All of that stuff has to be considered. The muscle groups that are responsible for that gesture, you have to give them a study or two, and then take on the lighting, and then take on the props, and then take on the composition. All of that stuff goes into a painting. It's not easy to paint because there's too much physics you guys are ignoring. If you jump in without any physics vocabulary, you're gonna be poking in the dark the whole time. You have to get yourself familiar with the vocabulary. If you stick to these classes, if you come regularly, I'm constantly talking, I'm repeating. I repeat myself a lot when I teach. And I think that's the best way to teach, because if you keep repeating the vocabulary, you guys start to pick it up. You guys start to remember that there is physics involved. And if you pick that up, you'll never forget it. It becomes your language. You adapt to the language of art. This is our community, and that's the discourse of our community. We are a community of artists, and we have our own language that we always use, words that we always go back to. If you guys stay within a community, surrounding yourself by people who always talk about form and lighting and subsurface scattering and all that, you won't forget it. You will always remember it. There's more physics in art than art. Okay? Remember that. If you want to quote me on anything, if you want to write anything on my grave, there's more physics in art than art itself. Okay, bye-bye guys. See you later.